Well, hello and welcome to the Sunset Safari here with Wild Earth. I'm coming to you live from Djuma Private Game Reserve, and for those of you who are watching this morning, I have managed to come up with an ingenious fly retarding system, but I'll get into that in a second. My name is Stefan Winterboer and I'm joined this afternoon by Andrew on camera, by Jamie, and by VM, as far as I know, is still out with Jamie, and by Tara and Jess in the final control. So, coming back to my fly story, I remember Andrew was lighting some elephant dung today to smell what it smells like, and it just triggered a memory. When I was in Zambia visiting the Northern Kafue National Park, the rangers there lit some elephant dung and hung it around the cars to discourage tsetse flies from biting us, and it worked like a charm. And I must be honest with you, as I'm sitting over here right now, I don't have a single fly buzzing around me. I'm going to show you what I did in a second, but testimony to the fact that it works. So some good old African bush magic. And basically what it is, just hold, we must hold it there.
That's good, yeah.
Basically what it is, it's a can that we had some of our coffee in, that I drilled some holes in, and inside I have put a piece of smoldering elephant dung. You see in there?
Yeah, I see.
And the smoke that's coming off of it is really aromatic. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. It's actually smelling quite nice. I know that smoking elephant dung has been a traditional African cure for coughs and colds and a whole variety of different things for centuries. And we're going to give it a bash today, feeding it tiny little bits of elephant dung that we pick up. This is a piece of elephant dung. And what keeps it smoldering is the fact that the elephant have chewed wood. This is a piece of chewed stick. And there's another piece of chewed stick. And with their massively varied diet, we just going to spray myself in the face of the elephant dung. I have no doubt that inside here the medicinal uses of plants, I mean, come through in this dung almost unchanged. Only about 20% of what the elephant eats is actually used for its own nutrition. The rest just comes straight out mixed with some water. So this is pretty much exactly as would be lying around in the bush, and of course retains a lot of its medicinal properties, one of which seems to be the fact that I don't have a single fly buzzing around me, which I think is fantastic. Now the only thing that we've got to try and do is not burn the Kruger National Park down while we're busy with it, but I have noticed that it doesn't look too bad. It just smolders quite nicely. There's not much embers that come out of it. We'll be careful, of course, and we'll carry on going. But to what we're going to be doing this afternoon, that's the main thing. As we said goodbye today, myself and Andrew were following up on a male leopard whose tracks we found just before we said goodbye. But it was quite difficult for us to see where the tracks were going because someone had driven over those tracks. But as we came out of the block, lo and behold, a drag mark was on the road. And a drag mark means that something that is dead was being carried by something that wants to eat it. And when we followed up on the drag mark, we saw that it was hyena footprints had been dragging something, and we tracked and we tracked and we tracked, and eventually, right at the Djuma waterhole, the drag mark ended at the Djuma waterhole. So the hyena actually put the kill in the water, which they do to get it away from other predators. The hyena are quite well known for doing that. But now what myself and Andrew have done is backtrack that drag mark to see where that hyena stole that kill from that lion. From that leopard. I have no doubt that he stole the kill or a piece of the kill from this male cat. It's just too many coincidences for it to be in the same area. And my hope is that somewhere along this afternoon we can actually find out what it is that A, what it was that died, and B, what killed it, so that we can show it to you. But without further ado, let's carry on going. One thing that the smoke is giving me is a runny nose. So that obviously is a side effect of whatever it was eating. So excuse Excuse the odd sniff. Now the flies are attracted to movement. So, let's carry on. I'm hoping that we find signs of that drag mark on this road. The last time I had anything of it was as we were coming out of this block on the left hand side where we are at the moment. That drag mark was coming through the bush. Quite difficult to follow in this type of bush because there's so many bush paths around. It's really difficult to see something that was dragged, and obviously it wasn't something very big. It was quite small. I would say that it was probably duiker or steenbuck size, and it was dragged quite a distance as well. It was probably dragged about a mile. Can you believe it? Now I've watched hyena and I've watched leopard drag things for upwards of a kilometer. So I'm hoping that the drag mark comes out here somewhere and we can get an idea of where it terminates. While myself and Andrew look for this drag mark, I think a good thing to do would be to link back to Jamie so that Jamie can say hello and tell you what she's up to this afternoon. And I think that she's got some hornbills that she wants to show you. So from Birmingham to birds eating out of that, we'll see you in a bit.
Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie and I have VM back on his second drive since he was on leave, on camera with me. Great to have the wildebeest back on board with us once again. And we are currently in Arathusa. We're sort of checking out the drainage lines. It is a really hot day today, nice warm afternoon. And that's led us to think that hopefully the best chance for finding things might be in the shade and somewhere in a drainage line. And for those of you who might have missed the sunrise safari, we had the Birmingham boys right on the western boundary of Arathusa. We were really lucky. They went flat cat just at the edge, so we were able to spend a little bit of time with them. And we did have a big thank you to say to a lot of the zoomies who alerted us to their presence at the Arathusa Dam at about 5 o'clock this morning. And I'm hoping that they are still in the vicinity. I'm sort of heading in that direction, however it is very hot, and I strongly suspect they will have moved into the drainage line for a little bit of extra shade, which unfortunately puts them just out of our reach. But we're going to head in that direction anyway, just to see what they're up to. Our snacking hornbill has left. He was just digging through some buffalo dung from yesterday's buffalo herd that moved through this area and catching up on termites and maggots that were probably making their way through that dung already, only 24 hours later. And we are on Zebra Drive. It's time for us to head off and see what we can find. Still no sign of Shadow's tracks. I have been looking very carefully. She was south of our boundary yesterday, and I was hoping that she would make her way up Triple M and into the area that she's been in for the last few weeks. But unfortunately, so far, no luck there. But what an interesting situation with that hyena kill, dragging it into the water that Steph had. Always fascinating little creatures, hyenas. I'm also very much on the lookout for the Anderson males tracks. And for those of you who might be joining us for the first time or not too sure what's happening, the Anderson male is a very large male leopard who's been starting to push east into the fringes of Tingana's territory. And Tingana's typically been the ruling leopard in this area, dominant force. But he seems to be a little bit under siege at the moment by the Anderson male. So we'll be keeping an eye out for him as well. Try and get a nice position for these herd of impala who are fairly desperately looking for some shade. There's not much to be found around here. And on our way down, Viam actually remarked that it's so dry we might see an animal like an oryx. And it certainly does have that feel to it today. Everything is very brown and dusty. And all of the animals holding out for the first rains, which are probably only going to come sometime in October, November. So they've still got a long time to wait. I do have a feeling we're in for a very, very long and dusty spring and summer. You can hear how quiet it is as well. There's just the sound of the what looks like a southern white-crowned shrike sitting at the top of the tree there. Could possibly be a new bird for some of you who are working on your bird lists. And we did also see that Senegal lapwing that Steph had yesterday afternoon, also on the same place on Impala Plains, just before we went live. So it seems as though that pair might just be nesting in that open area, which is very exciting news. It's not a common lapwing for us to see. So we can start to look forward to more Senegal lapwing sightings. And of course, as summer comes and the rains start to advance, we'll also start to see a lot of the migrant species returning. So the cuckoos, some of the other shrikes like the red-backed shrike, or what other shrikes are migratory? The red-backed shrike is probably the main one. They're going to start returning to these areas very, very soon once the rains start to come. And I'm still on the lookout because I think that we can start expecting the Warburg's eagles to be heading back here. Even the steppe buzzards and the steppe eagles should be making their way back as part of the sort of first early migration of the bird species that we do see here. And our impala have disappeared off, possibly to seek out more shade. And we're just going to head towards Arathusa Dam. There is a family of warthogs that have been living there. I've seen them twice now, and I'm hoping they might show themselves again. It's a nice large sounder of warthogs. Might still be a little bit too hot for them. lot of viewers thrilled to have Liam back. The wildebeest is back on form and with us, and I'd say a big thank you on his behalf to all of you. I believe that Liam had a wonderful time in the Kruger. Is that right, Liam? Yep. Amongst other places. So he's been around and about and is back refreshed and ready to shoot some amazing images for us all. I'm going to avoid going up to Arathusa Dam just because they do have guests at the lodge and it's still a little bit early, so I can see all of the guests out and about having their lunch on the deck, and I don't want to disturb them too much, so I'm going to avoid investigating the dam for now. We will be back. We can come back a little bit later depending on what's here, but it's still a little bit early and the rest of the guests haven't gone out on their game drives yet. Jigger has definitely acquired a new squeak to her brakes, which I will try and fix at some point. It's a little bit tricky because I've got to get the hubs off and then get into those brake pads that I think have just acquired some dust. I'm trying to avoid using brakes as much as possible for now. The gears work just as well. And I'm sure you've all been wondering what Steph has been up to. So for now, we're going to head back across to where he is on Djuma, and we will continue our search for these elusive leopards of Arathusa. We'll be back with you a little bit later.
Welcome back. And here we have a hippo in Buffelshoek Dam, this Bob, Bachelor of Buffelshoek, as James lovingly refers to him. But have a look at what's on his back. He has a terrapin on his back. That is a marsh. Let me just double check before I commit to what it actually is. It definitely is a terrapin. Difficult for me to say from here, but judging from its size, I would say that it's the marsh terrapin, the larger of the two terrapin species that we get here, the other one being the serrated backed. And they're on the back of this hippo simply because they probably were feeding around the hippo's feet. So the terrapins are carnivorous. They eat insects and small aquatic invertebrates, beetles and all those things that are in the detritus at the bottom of a pan. And as the hippo would be moving around and lying on its side over there, the terrapins would have been feeding, and when they finished feeding, they would have come up for a breath of air. They are air breathing, they don't have gills, and the closest mass out of the water would have been the hippo itself. And there you can have a look at a nice symbiotic relationship going on over there. At the moment it's commensalism, which means that the marsh terrapin benefits, but the hippo neither is harmed nor benefits from the relationship. But if a buffalo or two had to come down to the water, there you see mutualism, because the buffalo carry a lot of parasites on them, and the marsh terrapin is well known for going up to buffalo that are busy drinking or wallowing in ponds and biting off ticks. So the terrapin gets a feed, the buffalo gets cleaned, and then the symbiosis is called mutualism, where both parties benefit and neither are harmed. Nothing much else happening here at the dam. I had a fear that it was going to be a bit early for us to get here this afternoon, but nevertheless, it gives us something to come back for. Generally, dams like this are busy at midday, and then this time of year again close to sunset, where it starts to pick up again. I didn't really expect to find anything much. I really came over here to see whether or not there were some tracks. This road that leads up to this dam is quite well used and holds tracks quite well, which I'm hoping to find some sign of this leopard that we've been looking for. Feels like we've been looking for this leopard for days now. Nonetheless, we're going to carry on with our search. And we're going to keep on going. Let's go. I must say thank you to Jennifer in Toronto for sending through your comments to us. And I want to answer your question by saying, I didn't make one for Jamie just yet. I will make one for Jamie. I first had to prove my concept. Let me just go through this dip. The signal is going to get a bit jumpy, but we'll be out it soon enough. Don't go anywhere. Alright, so the signals come back to us again. Excuse us for any of the jumpiness. We did go through a very big dip over there. It's quite tough to get signal everywhere on this reserve. For those of you new to the show, you're welcome to send me through some questions if you like. You can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can use the email questions@wildearth.tv, and we'll try and get through as many questions as we can in the drive. Talking about some comments, Susie Wolf really likes our fly smoker idea. I actually wanted to get to a point where I could test it out. As you can see from the top of my head at the moment, and I'm trying my best to stay still, it feels like 50 or 60 flies, although probably only 3 that are driving me insane. Wow. So what we did was we switched off our Ellie smoker. Now we're going to switch it on again and see if it makes a discernible difference. It's the only test. So I'm lighting it while I'm in the car so that I don't drop any flaming bits of anything. As you can see there, I'm just getting the wood smoldering. That's all it really takes. I don't want any flames anywhere. There we have. Now I take this and I put it into my smoker, and then I hang my smoker on the side of the car. Oh, hang on, wait, let's do the test first. With it billowing around my face over here. Can we see any flies on my head at the moment? No. Well, I'm not going to call that conclusive evidence, and I feel very, very sorry for not warning you to put on your welding goggles before looking at my bald, shiny head in the sun. So, we won't call that conclusive yet, but I must say, so far so good for this fly smoker. It looks like we may have stumbled onto something over here. You know, when in doubt, in Africa, always just watch an African. They've always got an ingenious solution to a lot of the problems that we have out here. I promise, it's crazy. From ticks to malaria to... it's crazy. I spent 3 years studying a traditional healer's knowledge out here in the bush. A large company wanted to document some new knowledge about plants, and so we started to study a traditional healer who was at the stage, he was 91 years old. He had spent his entire life learning about plants and comes from a line of traditional healers. In this area they're called Inyangas, I-N-Y-A-N-G-A, Inyanga. And an Inyanga is not a spiritual leader, it's literally a bush doctor. That's what an Inyanga is. And at the end of the study, we had done 480 plants, and of that 480 plants, 20 of the plants had been scientifically tested for properties that were not known to science. How was that? And this guy has added 20 new medicinal uses of plants that hadn't been done before by the time we finished. Let's have a look at this Nyala. Oh, he's moved off now. Let's go around the tree a little bit. Have a look at this big Nyala. Really is a giant, and I specifically want you to have a look at its horn tips. When he sticks his head up again, if you'll notice that the tips of his horns, the last 2 inches or so, are pointing away from one another. This tells me that this is a full-grown male Nyala, not a prime Nyala. He's past prime. There will be stronger bull Nyala around. Have a look how pretty he is. Easily one of the most impressive antelope species that we have out here. Huge mane around his body that he's now erecting. I don't know what he's erecting it at. Usually they just do that for each other, but there might be another Nyala around here. Makes his profile bigger. Those big horn tips, blunt at the top after years of jousting and fighting. And I know that he's past prime because of those horn tips. If those horn tips were parallel to one another, he would be a prime ram, or bull I should say, excuse me. And if they're pointing towards one another, he would be an immature bull. And very many of the antelope exhibit a similar thing, very, very many of them. From kudu through to impala, springbuck, bushbuck, many of the antelope species. If we see others today, I'll be sure to show you. Alright, now from one thing with a mane to another, Jamie seems to have bumped into the Birmingham boys from this morning, and I'm sure she's dying to tell you all about them. So we will carry on looking for this leopard, and we'll catch up with you in a little bit.
Welcome back everyone, and I just thought since I was in the area I'd pop my nose in here and have a look and see if these lions were up to anything. And as you can see on this hot Saturday, I think it's Saturday, yeah, Saturday afternoon, they are not up to very much at all. Very, very relaxed boys, just paws up in the air, and exactly where we left these 3 this morning. Yes, good afternoon. And that is the large blonde male, the oldest of the 5, it looks like. And he does have a little bit of a limp still going on. We noticed it quite a lot this morning when he got up from lying down. It looks to be like his front left paw. And I can't see anything from this angle at the moment. Might be a little bit swollen at the ankle. Doesn't seem to be hampering him too badly, considering the distances that these boys have been moving over the last few days as they start to try and establish themselves. And they are still looking fairly contented with life. Those bellies are definitely not empty, although they will be hunting fairly soon. Definitely very contented cats. Now, as pretty much most of you will know, but we might have some new viewers, these young Matimba male lions, a coalition of 5 young boys, have been causing quite a bit of chaos in the area, and this is typically the territory, or has been the territory over the last few years, of the 2 Matimba males, hairy belly and a ginger male. And Matimba male lion, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Now, I know that you and many others were wondering where the Matimba boys are at this point in time, and I've only just got an update right now that the one is on Vessel's property, which is to the south of Arathusa, to the best of my knowledge, mating with one of the 6 females again, and the other is on Chitwa, so south of Djuma, or south of WildEarthTV's boundaries, just south of Gowrie, Maine. So they are still in the area, but they have not put in any kind of show in terms of coming to chase away the Birmingham boys, possibly because they are a little bit distracted by that female lioness who's in estrus at the moment. So a bit of an update for you there, just to let you know what's happening with those 2. And of course, everybody's very, very curious as to how this situation is going to play itself out over the next few months. For now, these boys seem perfectly content with being over there. And we do also have the other 2, just in case you were wondering, since we only have 3 on our right. The other 2 are also flat cat under the guari bushes. Looking just as contented and relaxed, and that drainage line that you can see there is right at the boundary of Arathusa, so once they cross over there we will not be able to follow them, and as far as I know that will be new territory for them, exploring that area.
Because I heard some of you mentioning that they're snagging quite nicely. Yeah. Do you remember we were
And I'm looking to see for any flicks of the ears or flicks of the whiskers that might indicate that they are in any way bothered by flies. And I must say it's something that I've noticed about Arathusa, is that I certainly am not plagued in the same way that I am on Djuma. But the lions are still responding every now and again to the flies, and maybe they should try Steph's elephant dung burning approach, which I think is the most innovative method I've seen in a while. I'm hoping it works out for him, because if it does, I might give it a go. It does give quite the impression, as Steph drove off this afternoon to prepare for his sunset safari, it did look very much as though Wendy was smoking and possibly on fire. So it helps to know that he was just burning elephant dung in a coffee tin. Very, very clever method.
The cowardly lion.
I mentioned that just to the west of us is the property boundary. And Leo from Washington State, you were wondering, since there are no street signs, how do we know where the boundaries are between the various properties? And I will tell you a story about that. I actually have only just learned that through experience. When I very first started working for Wild Earth, I actually was sent off with a map and a vehicle to go and learn the roads of Arethusa, and for the longest time had absolutely no idea where I was until I bumped into a very happy vehicle who was a very welcome sight to me at the time because I was really considerably lost. And he kindly explained that I was a good couple of kilometers outside of our boundary, had a good chuckle, and then sent me on my way. So I've only learned now through experience, and the roads all have names, we all have maps. It's just a matter of getting to know the area, and for me that drainage line is the perfect indicator in terms of the Arethusa western boundary.
Plus, we're also under the impression that you get to sit in enough traffic you don't need to.
And as I'm sure you can imagine, this is quite a popular sighting, and there are lots and lots of people who are keen on having a look at these lions. So we are going to have to leave them for now, and we'll come back a little bit later if they still are around. I don't think they're going to be moving anytime soon. They definitely don't look like they're going to. And in the meantime, Steph has a fantastic group of dwarf mongoose chilling out in the sun, and we'll be back with you a little bit later.
Bad? Oh, no. Flies not bad yet.
Have a look at what we bumped into. This is obviously coming from one of Africa's largest predator. This is quite often referred to as Africa's smallest predator, and roughly 100 times smaller than that male lion that you were just seeing now. They weigh almost exactly the same, but 267 grams versus 267 kilograms for a male lion. This is the dwarf mongoose, and have a look at that. Now it's quite interesting as they're living in this termitarium, and termite mounds, apart from being everything else that they are, make fantastic homes for a lot of creatures out here, dwarf mongoose being one. Have a look coming into the bottom of your screen now, bottom right, you'll notice a bunch of little black dots. That is their dung. They have a latrine area, but have a look at how flat the sand is around there. And now I'm going to tell you why that is. That is the northern side of this termitarium, and it's where these mongoose will be lying down in the mornings to get sun. In the southern hemisphere, the sun is on the northern side. That's why all our houses face north here. It's to get the warmer side. It's the warmest side of the termitarium, and they would come out in the morning after spending a night inside the termite mound and sun themselves before feeding, and that's where they've defecated as well as been lying there in the sun. Isn't that wonderful? Now they live in quite big groups, and they are very highly social. They're very, very social animals. The groups number on average about 12 individuals, but they have been known to go up to about 32 individuals at a push. And only one dominant pair will be the pair that has babies, the alpha alpha male and the alpha female. The rest of the group of mongi or mongai or mongooses or mongoose, however you want to say it. I don't think there is actually a collective name. They will help forage and help look after the babies, the generations, and as they reach maturity, they will leave, wander around alone quite often until they find a mate, and then they'd start their own little colony. These two are just enjoying sunning themselves in the looking out. I haven't seen too many others. I saw one other one that was just behind there actually. What a beautiful sight. As you can see, they're very alert. Now their territories aren't very big. Their territories are about 1 square kilometer, or about 0.6 of a mile. Oh, there's another one sticking his head out. And they will sleep in this one square kilometer. They will sleep in a different termite mound every single night, and that's so that they can avoid being preyed upon. These guys really are on the menu of quite a lot of things, not just mammals like leopard, but also birds. Eagles will take them, and snakes will take them as well. So they really got to watch where they go. And one of the ways that they avoid being preyed upon is by changing where they sleep every single day. And much like lions, if sick and injured members of this group are able to keep up with the clan as it moves from one place to another, they will be looked after. They will be fed, they will be groomed, they'll form part of the social group. But if they fall behind, they're on their own. And that's because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And they really won't come back and look after a very sick one. I once saw one that had been spat in the face by a Mozambique spitting cobra, and was wandering around blind for a couple of days in the territory. How it didn't get eaten, I don't know, but eventually that one went back to its clan. As soon as it could see again, it walked through the bush, going probably from foraging area to foraging area, and when it found its clan, it was accepted again. Can you believe? That is full grown, the one on the right hand side. And you might find that there are some babies inside this clan. There are babysitters that are allocated in the clan. And it's the responsibility of the babysitters literally to babysit babies. They carry them from den to den, they bring them food, they groom them. And other adults don't come and share what they have with the babies. They will go out and feed, and it'll be the babysitter's turn to share everything that they have. Interesting, eh? Welcome to the show, Dennis in Lakeville. You've sent through a question that I'm sure some of you have picked up on, but not all of you would ask, but you have. Dennis, you've said that you've heard lots of presenters refer to dwarf mongoose as Africa's smallest predator, but isn't that title belonging to the tree shrew? You are absolutely right. You are not wrong at all. It is absolutely right. Africa's smallest predator is a reference to mammals that catch other mammals. The tree shrew is almost exclusively insectivorous, and while the dwarf mongoose does eat a lot of insects and a lot of invertebrates, it also has been known to catch birds and mice, which is where it gets its title from. But what a good question there, Dennis. Thank you very much for sending through that question. I must be honest, I'm absolutely loving this smoke at the moment. I'm sitting over here in a wave of smoke which is burning my eyes, and I'm starting to feel a little bit lightheaded, but to be honest with you, I don't have a single fly on me, and neither does Andrew. For the first time, we haven't been hitting ourselves red in the face. I'm actually going to say that this works. Well done. Yeah, awesome. Alright, we're going to leave these dwarf mongoose for a bit, and we're just going to answer one more question from Joyce in New Hampshire. Asked quite a hardcore question, Joyce. Other than being a food source for other things, what ecological role do dwarf mongoose play in an ecosystem? And Joyce, good question. If a bit hardcore, Joyce, they help to keep insect numbers down. So as you go down in the trophic levels, as you go down in the food chain, closer to a producer, numbers increase. And in terms of insects, their numbers can be super abundant, and obviously insects eat plants, and plants do grow. Too many insects without predators on insects, and you'd get an overabundance, an overgrowth of plants. Things wouldn't be able to move through the undergrowth. Too many insects, you don't have enough grass, you don't have enough food for everything, and the entire pyramid collapses. These dwarf mongoose, and in fact everything out here, lives in a balance with everything else. One keeping another one in check, keeping another one in check. So although they are a food source, not a very big food source, but a food source for other predators, they in turn are prey on insects and scorpions, small mice, and things that left unchecked can actually have an impact. So everything's in balance, everything's in an environmental equilibrium out here. Everything except us, that is. We tend to stand outside of that, but we try and maintain it as best we can in places like this, which I think we do quite well. So thanks for the question there, Joyce. I think let's carry on going. We are looking for a leopard, or any cat in actual fact. Myself, I'm having a bit of an anti-leopard week, it seems, this week. I can't remember the last time I saw a leopard, to tell you the honest truth. I can't even remember the last time I tracked and found a leopard, to be honest. But we're giving it a good bash. This is very close to the area where we've actually found that big male's tracks this morning. I've decided to come back into this area, not because I think that this male leopard is here, to be honest with you. Leopard very rarely come back to the same place. I just want to make sure that I haven't missed a clue about which direction that he's gone in. We didn't find any further tracks of that drag marks. I can only conclude two things. One is that if it was a kill, it was made in that block, and if it was a leopard kill, that leopard didn't come out of that block. We're going to wait for him to come out of that block before we can find him. I didn't even know where he went in, to be honest. So I want to come and see here where his tracks have gone. Now, what is going on, basically? Tamara from Snake Holland has just asked an interesting question. Probably the first time, Tamara, in my entire 16 years of guiding where I've been asked this question, actually. You asked, why is a leopard called a leopard in Dutch? In Afrikaans, the word for leopard is luiperd, which literally translated means lazy horse. When they seem anything but lazy, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know the answer to that question. So I'm actually going to throw it right back out there and ask for our viewers to give us some feedback on where the word leopard originates from. It would seem obvious that it's not literally translated from lazy horse, that it probably comes from some Latin name for something or other. And I would really like to know. So if any of you out there can do it, please research it, send it through to the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email the answer through to questions@wildearth.tv, and I'll share it with everyone else. So, thank you. Now, while I get to this junction, it's probably going to take me a little bit of time to decipher what happened to the tracks. I couldn't do it easily this morning, so I have no doubt it's going to take me a little bit longer now that we are sort of 6 hours past that. We're going to go through to Jamie. She's apparently got some sample collecting going on that she wants to tell you something about, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Finishing.
So, welcome back everyone, and as you can see, Project Packy Poop is well on its way to getting a little bit more advanced. And before I start to talk about my sample collection, Donna from South Carolina, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Now Donna would like to know a little bit of the history behind Project Packy Poop and what exactly it is I'm trying to accomplish with this whole mission. So it started out as a little bit of a joke. I picked up a tiny piece of elephant dung, really small, and popped it on the dashboard and asked the viewers exactly how old they thought that elephant was that had created that particular tiny piece of poop. And the problem with that particular question was that I honestly didn't know for sure what the answer was. And so it started Project Packy Poop, where I sort of vowed that every time I saw a small or young elephant defecating, I would come back and have a look at the size of the poop and get a rough idea, because then I'd seen the elephant, I sort of knew how old it was, and then I could compare sizes of poo. So yesterday on the Sunset Safari, Andrew and I were sitting in this exact position where I've parked the car now, and we had one female elephant, one cow, and 3 young males of different ages. The youngest was probably about 2.5 years old, and he was the one causing a little bit of trouble and then being bullied by the middle male, who was about maybe 5 or 6, and then there was a slightly older male who I put at about 7 or 8 years old, getting a little bit older, almost at that teenage stage of elephanthood. And what I did is I came back here and I collected a couple of samples. So on the right here, would be your right, it's my left, that took some serious thinking for a second. On my right, on your right, mommy's poo. This is an adult female's dung ball. And you can see roughly what size that is as a useful comparison source. Then we have the eldest male elephant, and this is definitely from yesterday, it's still damp, and I put him at about 7 to 8 years old. And then this particular dung ball, that probably belonged to the 5-6-year-old elephant bull. And then the smallest one, I took a little bit of liberty with the smallest one because I couldn't find the fresh stuff from that little bull that we saw yesterday. I couldn't find it in this pile, possibly because another herd of elephants came through shortly afterwards and deposited quite a considerable amount of dung. But this is roughly how big I would expect his dung ball to be. Now Donna, there's no particular purpose behind this. It is just that I'm curious, and it's so nice when you are able to walk and drive through the bush to be able to explore what it is you are seeing and know just that little bit extra. So being able to drive past some ellie dung and having a look at the size of the dung balls and being able to say to people, hey, that elephant might have been around 5 to 6 years old or 2 to 3 years old, is just a nice little way of experiencing and making that experience of that bush just a little bit deeper. And it also has a nice purpose in terms of your walking experience, because although you should always be avoiding breeding herds on foot if you can, if you do come across a dung piece that is smaller than this one means that there's an elephant that's under a year old somewhere in that herd, and something that you really, really want to avoid. And not only is this project giving me that little bit of understanding, but it's also helping to contribute to my research and my knowledge, because up until I started this project, I had no idea what age baby elephants start to eat solid food. I knew that they continued to suckle for up to 2 years, but I had no idea. I knew that they started to develop teeth, but I looked into it and I discovered that at 6 months they start to eat solid, so you'll start to see the grass coming through in their dung, and they will still continue to supplement feed with their mother's milk up until about 2 years, which means by 6 months they've already got their first set of molars. It's just a way of expanding your knowledge in this area. So Project Packy Poop, I've already sort of put the idea in my head as to what the different sizes are, so I shall return these because they are full of dung beetles and I don't want to take them away from their home. It is getting to that season where they are around. One little dung beetle. Let's keep you in the dung ball. So I'm going to return these to the environment from which they came, but we have a lesson now. So 7 to 8, 5 to 6, 2.5 to 3, roughly in terms of ages. And once again, my hands are covered in ellie poop. Seems to be a theme for the last few drives. Not that I'm ever complaining, because lots of ellie poop means lots of ellies, and I love ellies. And now it is time for us to continue. I've just had a report from some of the Arethusa guides that some dealer was seen on the Safari driveway junction M, so right on our boundary, and he crossed across into Hoffman's, which is outside of our Traverse area, but we strongly suspect he's going to make his way back out, especially if Shadow is somewhere still on Arethusa. So we're going to slowly make our way in that direction. Just wait for it to cool down a little bit, because it is still very, very warm, probably too warm for most of the animals to be moving around. But we do want to be heading in that direction, and so we shall continue on our route. It's just a short little bit of information about Project Packy Poop and the petite elephants who created that poop. I'm trying to think of how many other alliterative options I have beginning with P that might mean baby. I'm only getting petite at the moment, but I'm not putting all of my brain power into it. Avoided knocking VM out. And as we continue on our sunset safari, Tamara asked that question of Steph, which I think is a really, really good one, as to why in Afrikaans a leopard is known as a luiperd, which sort of literally translated is a lazy horse, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. VM, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the matter. My guess would be it's just a sound thing. We've acquired a passenger. Let's just get rid of that for a moment. We very definitely acquired what looks like half a tree under the undercarriage of the car. So we'll dodge that this time. And the only reason I can think of behind Oh, there's lots of elephant dung going into my face. Had quite a good mouthful there. I think that leopard must have been an alliterative version of people saying the word leopard. And I'm not sure of the history behind leopard, or the word leopard, but it probably wasn't originally pronounced as we pronounce it today. And it probably just branched off from two separate language branches as the word used for the spotted cats of Africa. And then we look at the word for cheetah, which is a jachtluiperd, so a hunting leopard, which also doesn't really make too much sense because both cheetah and leopard hunt. So we delve deeper into the mysteries of language. And Afrikaans, of course, mostly has its origins in the Dutch language, most of it. Obviously, there's some other influences. So I'm not sure what the word for leopard is in Dutch. Perhaps some of the viewers know, and of course, we're always keen to hear from you. And you can do so on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarthTV. And I'm just making my way towards the dam because first of all, there is a hippo there that looks a little bit like a floating island. He's acquired so much plant life on his back. I don't want to drive too far off road because it is going to do damage to this fairly barren area. It is so dry. And he is quite far away, but appears to be a bit of a floating island on his back, or have a floating island on his back. Obviously just rose up right under all of those water weeds that have now attached themselves to him. Quite a peaceful scene. The last few afternoons that we've come by here, or over the last few weeks, I've often seen the hippos out and about sunbathing on the side, but it is definitely getting too hot for them to do that anymore. There you can see the beautiful Arathusa Lodge, currently in the middle of being re-thatched. And there's plenty of water still in this dam, which is a good thing. The animals are going to need it in the months to come. There are some buffalo off in the corner there, so we're just going to loop around. It looks like a group of Dugger boys. They all look like males to me. So let's loop around and have a look and watch them for a while, enjoy their afternoon soak in the dam. And then before we go to these buffalo, are we going to be able to catch that bird there just on the edge? And that really beautiful bird that is pecking along that russet colored back is known as an African jacana. And it's quite a unique and fascinating bird in that the females are actually, I'm just trying to think of the word, it's polyandrous. So they mate with multiple males and they leave each male to raise their brood of chicks and continue on their way to the next unsuspecting male. And that's generally quite unusual in the bird world. For the most part, most birds are either monogamous or they are polyamorous, can't remember the word right now, but it means that the males mate with lots of females. It is fairly unusual for a female to have multiple male mates. And quite a beautiful bird. As she's walking along there, you can see those very, very large feet. And that's an adaptation to being able to walk along either in the mud or on top of the sort of flimsy water reeds. Oh, off she goes. Donna, welcome to the Sunset Safari, and as we were looking at that African jacana, it would be a great bird to add to your bird list. And I know that you were wondering how you go about creating one, and there's no set system. Basically, just as we are conducting either the sunrise or the sunset safari, we will try and point out the odd bird. We couldn't possibly point out every bird that we see on every drive, but we will try and point out some of the few really nice obvious ones, or maybe the little bit unusual ones for you to see. And you can just start making your own list. Just jot it down. And if you do want a little bit of information as to how you spell it, or just want us to repeat the name, just shout on Twitter on #SafariLive, or you can email through to questions@WildEarth.tv, and we will help you out with the name, and we will double check the spelling of it just so that you know exactly what you're seeing. And over time, if you stay with us for these live safaris, you could pick up an incredible list of birds. We probably have at least 150 species at the moment, just generally seen in the area, and that's just our 50 more than that. I think the Sabi, to be careful because our specific number, but over the 300 mark in terms of different species that you can see. Later, and what I'll try to do now is find you a picture of the African jacana so you can have a look at the spelling and what it looks like and the difference between the males and the females. So I'm going to just have a look through my bird book quickly. I'll find it for you fairly fast. And generally the ones that we will get very, very excited over are the ones that we haven't seen or don't often see. A good example being that Senegal lapwing that we've been seeing, that's been seen twice now on Impala Plains. The large feet that I was look disproportionately large, and a very, very striking bird that blue. The other interesting aspect about African jacanas is that, as in raptors, so the birds of prey, the females are considerably larger than the males. So just a little bit of interesting background on the African jacana. And I can hear some other birds flying around, and those would be the red-billed oxpeckers that are sitting on these dugger buoys. Every bird's tail, and you can see how that oxpecker is focused in on that. And that is one of the disadvantages of oxpeckers, is that when there is an open wound like that, they don't just feed on blood or on ticks and parasites, they also feed on blood and mucus. So when an animal does have even a small wound, they continually peck at it and keep it open and stop it from healing. So they can be very, very useful birds, but sometimes they do a little bit more harm than good. In this case, you can see that buffalo's got about 3 of them, now 4, and possibly even 5 moving around that area. to pick and keep that wound open. And these are all red-billed oxpeckers, continuing with our bird theme. And if we do ever see yellow-billed oxpeckers, which have a half yellow, half red beak, you will see us be very, very excited. I have yet to see one while I've been here on working for Wild Earth. Though I have been a little bit lax about checking every oxpecker I see. And just a little steenbokkie drinking on the edge there. And those nests of the buffalo weaver sitting up in that dead tree. Lots and lots of bird life around a dam like this. And it's interesting to note, I've been looking at a lot of these duggar boys, and most of them don't have very much in the way of mud or water on them. And I'm starting to wonder if they aren't feeling a little bit reticent about wallowing in the dam, as hippos are known to be a little bit grumpy and quite protective of their space, especially as the dams start to diminish in size. And it could be that the presence of the hippos has discouraged these duggar boys from rolling around in the mud. And the wind is starting to pick up again for the first time this afternoon. It did start out unbelievably still and hot, and it's just starting to blow ever so slightly, hopefully to bring a little bit of a cooler weather, or at least just a little bit of a drop in temperature, as we start to see the cats and various other animals get active again for their evening movements through the bush. And I think it's time that we leave these duggar boys and the birds of the Arathusa Dam and the floating hippo island, who appears to have disappeared now. And we head off again on our explorations of the area. And let's see if we can finally catch up with Sindile. It's been quite a long time since I've seen him, so I'm very, very keen to see what he's been up to and how he's doing. Those of you who keep up with some of the more peripheral leopard characters of this area, Salayesh has been spotted this morning on Elephant Plains. She is a female leopard who has, I think her cub is about 3 months old. So she was seen by the guides on Elephant Plains this morning, and her cub is still happy and healthy. For those of you who might have a little bit of a more in-depth knowledge of the various leopards in this area, this particular case, I'm not going to go directly to where Sindile was last seen by the guides, because he was seen crossing over the property. What I want to do is loop around before I go in that direction and just double check some of the more regularly used areas by Shadow. Since Sindile was on his own, and very often the times that I've seen Shadow and Sindile together have been around this sort of time in the afternoon when she's made a kill and has come back to fetch him. I just want to double check and make sure that this hasn't been the case so that we don't miss out on seeing them. As we head away from our pachyderm dung experience, Janet has come up with some fantastic alliteration as the Petite and Preponderous Pachyed Poo project, which I'm very much enjoying, but I'm having difficulty wrapping both my brain and my tongue around. And Jess, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Now Jess was wondering if I rolled those dung balls round like that by hand, or if it's how they come out of the animal. And that is very much how the animal leaves them for us. But it's a very good question that you've asked us, because in the next few months, once the rains come, we will not be seeing dung balls like that. They will be deposited by the elephants in that shape. It is just the way that they come out of the rectum, so to speak. But the dung beetles will be there within minutes, and I've seen dung balls flattened, completely flat, within half an hour during the height of summer and the height of the rainfall, when there's lots and lots of dung beetles about. So in summer we really don't get to see those dung balls so clearly, which is what makes the Petite and Preponderous Pachyderm, okay, I've lost it, but that particular project is what makes it fairly urgent right now, because over the next few months we're not going to be able to do it. The dung beetles will have removed the shape of our dung balls before we can get to compare them. And it's only because it is winter that I was able to come back to complete dung balls today, when they had been deposited yesterday. I did think about it yesterday, but I felt like Mommy Elephant had perhaps been provoked quite enough by those 3 little boys that she was looking after. I didn't want to add to that situation in any way. As we continue on our elusive leopard tracks, admittedly I've yet to find the actual tracks just yet, but as we continue our search for the elusive leopards, Steph is also on elusive leopard tracks, and I'm sure that you've been wondering what he's been up to, so we're going to cut across to Steph for now, and I will be back with you a little bit later, hopefully with one of these said elusive leopards.
Welcome back to my very quiet safari so far. Got a feeling it's the heatest time of the day for this day. I was having a look at the weather report last night, and they've predicted berg wind conditions for today, which have made the temperature outside of the sun but it's hot, and I don't think too many things are moving around right now, to be quite honest. It's been an incredibly dry drive for me. Not quite as same for you've been looking at buffaloes and jacanas, and there's been all sorts of things around the dam, which is good. I'm glad that Jamie's holding down the fort, because if it was left for me, you'd all be asleep by now. Nonetheless, doesn't mean that there isn't anything around here. That's for very sure. And we'll keep on looking. Excuse for those signal gremlins creeping in. We were in a very low spot over there, and it sometimes happens in this area. Well, I just want to say thank you to Carol and Judy, Donna, RC and Sharon, who have managed to help us puzzle out the question about where leopard comes from. So leopard comes from the Greek. It's a Greek word, two words. Leon, which means lion, and pardus, which means panther. So it's the panther lion. That's how they described it. And Jamie has suggested that it's potentially a phonetic translation from English or Greek to Dutch that gave it that word leopard, and not really the literal translation of lazy horse. So where it really comes from is the panther lion, or the lion panther, and it's Greek, which isn't too uncommon. That happens quite a lot with us out here, but I'm glad that we managed to decipher that, and I just want to say thank you to those who helped us understand. Your effort and interaction on these shows is definitely what makes it so brilliant. One of the real special, unique things about the product that we do is the fact that no matter where you are in the world, we can reach out and touch one another and learn from each other. Alrighty. These leopards are beginning to wear my patience thin. They're running circles around me. I don't quite know what I'm going to do. Probably get a little bit more aggressive in my approach to driving around here. It's getting to that time of the day where it's starting to cool down. It's definitely not that white heat that we were feeling literally a few minutes ago, 10-15 minutes ago. And it's about time I want to go and have a look at the dam that's close to here, do my daily inspection of the dams that we're close to, and see what is in their vicinity. That was a squirrel that just gave an alarm call there, although I think he gave it to us. To be honest, these squirrels can sometimes be a little bit schizophrenic. If it was a leopard in this particular area, he would be shouting and his tail would be wagging for all he's worth. I can't even see him right now, to be honest. Anyway, not too much of a problem. Carry on going.